What's up, Cerebral Football fans? My name is Steven Hyder. This is Gay City Sports Channel. And I know it's taken some time, but I'm back. I apologize, guys. I meant to come back full-time last week, but baby Alana is home, and there's not been a lot of sleep, guys. So it's been kind of tough to go live without having sleep. All right, with that said, we got some big news kind of breaking in here over the last couple of weeks, which is a lot of people anticipated Devonta Smith's contract to be done by this point. But right now, we're still kind of waiting on the inner workings there. I've gotten a lot of questions regarding Devonta Smith, the contract, and what the holdup might be. I think the short answer to kind of a complicated situation here, guys, is just to say it's a complicated situation, right? I mean, when you're dealing with contracts, you're dealing twofold, right? On one hand, you are looking at the production they've had up to this point. But then on the other hand, you also have to look towards that projection. What is your projection within your offense? What kind of yardage is this guy going to produce? How vital are they to the offense? I think when you get to Devonta Smith, this isn't your typical number 2 wide receiver, nor is this your typical number 1 wide receiver. So it's kind of difficult to get a feel for it, guys. It's not the easiest of contract negotiations, I will say. To begin with, we know he signed a 4-year, $20 million contract coming out of college. There's obviously the 5th-year option because he's a first-round pick. That's an AAV of about $5 million per year. And on top of that AAV of $5 million a year, I do believe all $20 million was guaranteed at signing. Let's start there with this conversation, guys, because I do think we need to understand the difference between guaranteed at signing compared to practical guarantees. The first thing, everyone likes to say that the NFL is fair and balanced because of the salary cap. And that is partially true. It's also partially bullcrap, okay? Where the differences occur between organizations and in particular ownership is how they can play around with the bonus money. The first time I heard this discussion become very prominent was in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes when Cleveland guaranteed $200-some million. When you start talking about guaranteeing a certain percentage that has to be placed into escrow, that's a big deal for owners. Not every owner can pony up that kind of cash for a single player. We are very fortunate in Philadelphia, and that's where the first conversation has to be started, guys, is the fact that a lot of the things that Howie Roseman can do, of course, comes from the accounting department and what they're able to do from that department standpoint, negotiations, the contracts, all those things, but also because Jeffrey Lurie is not afraid to spend money. And I do think that's the side of the discussion that is often left out. We're very fortunate to have Jeffrey Lurie, who's willing to throw money at championships. He will spend money in order to win, basically. All right, so practical guarantee. What is a practical guarantee? Practical guarantee is basically something that could be tied up in terms of like roster bonus, injury money. It's typically defined as like the injury kind of guarantees in a contract, right? Whereas your total guarantees everything together, but your guaranteed at signing is basically what you can then allocate. Okay, so prorate it. So when you hear like, oh, he's got a signing bonus of $30 million. Well, now you can take a chunk of that, think in the case of A.J. Brown, he got 57 point something in a signing bonus, right? Or practically guaranteed, I'm sorry. He got like 30-some million or whatever it was in a signing bonus. Well, you can take that 30-some million in the signing bonus, and then you can prorate that, allocate that over X amount of years to pay back towards the league. Player gets a lump sum. You need an owner who can spend money to do that, but then you get the reward of being able to basically balance the cap and try to keep pace with TV revenue, thus never getting burned. That's the first thing when you talk about a contract like this is that we can look at other similar contracts, and I have that information for you guys. We're going to talk about other players that I think are roughly around where they are, but we got to keep in mind they signed at different dates. But we got to start off by the fact of thinking that we know this is going to be a somewhat heavy signing bonus. We know he's going to get paid through a signing bonus because we know the way the Eagles like to do business. We know that Jeffrey Lurie will spend the money. We know that Howie Roseman will structure the contract in a way that keeps it cap friendly for many years. Okay. Obviously, everything always comes due, but as long as TV revenues pace with you, you can restructure your contract. And then guess what, guys? You're back in the loop again. You're back in the fold, right? You're doing everything you want to do again. All right. Let me talk about the two. Eden, I don't agree with that. Devonta is not better than AJ right now. It's not even close, man. AJ is a way better player right now. Let's talk about the two players that I think actually are shaping what is going on in terms of like the complexity behind these wide receiver contracts. I think there's two contracts in particular that are messing us up. All right. Calvin Ridley, who just signed, that 4-year, $92 million contract was an overvaluation of the player. I think that puts some strain on organizations right now to sign wide receivers. And I think you see the Eagles and the Cowboys kind of in a race here, messing around with getting these contracts worked out for CeeDee Lamb, Devonta Smith. I think whoever can get to the negotiation tables and finalize it first is going to be the benefactor here. You don't want to be the team following the other team here, right? Especially when you talk about like the Jamar Chases of the world. You talk about the CeeDee Lambs, the Devonta Smiths, the Jalen Waddles, all these names, right? Justin Jefferson, I think his contract information is still kind of floating around there with the Vikings trying to get that figured out. You don't want to be the last team to the negotiating table, or else it's going to get very, very complex to negotiate this, guys. So Calvin Ridley's 4-year, $92 million. It's a 23 AAV, average annual value on the contract. Average annual value that's the least impressive thing to me about these contracts, guys, but you can see that some dudes want that number. There are some guys who didn't get the total numbers, but they had the highest AAV, right? They had the highest AAV, like 30 million. Okay. Calvin Ridley got a $20 million signing bonus. 46.9 was guaranteed at signing. So that's what can be allocated. That's what the owner handed out to him. All right. And then he's got about $50 million in practical guarantees, which is probably 60 some percent of 92 million, 50 million is. So, you're talking fairly large chunk of that contract is guaranteed. Calvin Ridley was once upon a time a really good player. I'm not saying that Calvin Ridley is completely cooked, guys. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that Calvin Ridley is not a 4-year, $92 million contract right now. It is what it is, man. It complicates things for other teams, unfortunately. The other one was a couple years ago was the Christian Kirk deal in Jacksonville, where he got that 4-year, $72 million deal, 18 AAV, $20 million signing bonus, $37 million due at signing, and $37 practical. So he got everything that was guaranteed was due at signing. If you look at AJ Brown's, guys, you can see some subtleties and differences in those figures, guys. If you want to know, like the practical versus signing bonus. So for AJ Brown, who's the third highest paid receiver in terms of the total value, guys, he's tied for third, I should say. He got a 4-year, $100 million deal with a $25 million AAV. Okay, he got a signing bonus of $23 million, 23.4. But he got 39.9, so basically $40 million guaranteed at signing, but he got 57.2 practical guaranteed. Remember, AJ Brown had the knee issues. The Eagles took a chance to give him that $100 million contract. You guys remember Tennessee didn't want to do it. They thought there was some risk behind the knee. The Eagles took the chance. I'm pretty sure that some of that 57 million guys is tied in to probably guarantees around injury for AJ Brown. I would assume that's where some of that practical guaranteed money is. There could be some stuff that's based in option bonuses, like roster bonuses, option bonuses within the contract, guys. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that are kind of like holding that together, if you will. But yeah, I mean, it is kind of what it is, guys, at this point in terms of like those two contracts, they came through and they're complicating it for everybody. These were overvaluations on both players. It's also ironic. I think both players at one point were in Jacksonville, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, Calvin Ridley moved on. Okay, the 3 contracts when I was looking over, Spotrac is the easiest place to see this, guys. If you want to go to Spotrac, I'll walk you through it. Hang on. It's go to spotrac.com/NFL/contracts/wide. Then, put your little hash mark, receiver, and then / guys. That's where you can see all this stuff. So that's where you can kind of follow along on the wide receiver contracts. So I have it sorted by value, drafted and undrafted, guys. And I got it by the top 100 contracts. All right. So the 3 contracts that were recently signed. Now, obviously, when I say recently, guys, I mean that word, I think you probably have to define a little bit. Same within the last couple of years, these contracts were signed. And mind you, I do think that these are only to get an insight. These are not going to tell you what Devonta Smith's contract is going to be because, like I said, Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk kind of shifted the market on us a little bit here. All right, DK Metcalf at the age of 24 signed a 3-year, $72 million deal with a 24 AAV, average annual value, right? He got $30 million in a signing bonus. He got 31 guaranteed at signing, and he got 58.2 guaranteed in practical guarantees. DK also had some injury concern, if you remember, the neck stuff and all that stuff. All right, Michael Pittman. I think Michael Pittman's another guy you kind of have to look at the structure of the contract and just kind of get a feel for what they might try to do when it comes to Devonta. Michael Pittman signed his contract, I think, about 26 years old, guys. It was a 3-year, $70 million deal. 23.3 AAV. He got 15 in a signing bonus. Not a very large signing bonus here. Half of what DK got in the signing bonus, even though they signed for very similar in total value. 41 million that was guaranteed at signing. So he got a higher guarantee at signing. And 46 million in practical guarantees. So another 5 million or so, I guess, in terms of practical guarantees in his contract. Okay. And then Terry McLaurin signed his at 26 years old, guys. It was a 3-year, 68.364 million, 22.788 in terms of the AAV. We can see all these AAVs over 20 million a year. So I can tell you right away, Devonta Smith's AAV will be northward of 20 million. That part I think we can all say pretty confidently. 28 million in a signing bonus. So once again, kind of closer to that DK signing bonus level. 34.65 though guaranteed at signing. So less than what Michael Pittman Jr. got, a little bit more than DK. And he's got 53.154 in a practical guarantee. That could be tied to roster bonus. It could be tied to, option bonus stuff, guys. It's hard to say when it comes to the practical guarantees. It could be injury based. I don't know if Terry McLaurin having any kind of underlying injury concern though, or where they would be heavy in that. But some players just might want that in spite of that. They just might want that afforded protection to know that if they get injured, they're not going to be, sitting on the sidelines, not making any cash, if you will. All right. Those are the 3 contracts I look at, and I say to myself, I know for a fact at the bottom of this market is what I don't think this is necessarily Devonta Smith's market, but I would say that the bottom of this market is about 3 years, 72 million, northward of 20 AAV. Signing bonus. This is where it gets tough, guys, because like I said, if we go look at what A.J. Brown got, A.J. Brown's signing bonus was not as big as I thought it would be. Honestly, I thought they would put a little heavier in the signing bonus, but I also think it's because they knew they were resetting everything in terms of the team. But he only got a signing bonus of 23.474, A.J. did. I'm going to take a wild guess that one of the ways that the Eagles are going to balance this roster and trying to keep the core nucleus together, I got a feeling that Jeffrey Lurie is going to pony up a pretty impressive signing bonus when it all gets said and done with Devonta Smith. Because the bigger that signing bonus, the more money goes directly into the player's hand, and he knows it's guaranteed. He ain't got to worry about that. That's getting deposited into his bank account. But also the more flexibility the Eagles are going to have against the cap. And I can tell you right now, for some of you guys, I know you're going to have this question, which is, Steve, has anyone got is there any top 30 contracts, 2 guys in the top 30, 2 players on a team? I'm looking through it real quick. I don't believe that there are. I'm pretty confident there's not 2 guys in the top 30 on any team. So this would be kind of groundbreaking. We see San Francisco is dealing with this right now because Debo has the 10th highest contract. He signed a 3-year, $71.5 million deal with a $23.8 million AAV, $24 million and a signing bonus, 41 in total guaranteed at signing, 58.1 in practical guarantees. So he's, we see they're dealing with their situation right now with Brandon Ayuk. They got to figure that part out themselves. Michael Gallup, he's a top 16 paid guy, 5-year, $57.5 million contract, right? He got 11. Let's see, it looks like about 11.5. So actually, Michael Gallup, that's in total contract. I wouldn't even say Michael Gallup really qualifies for this. That's actually a pretty affordable deal over 5 years because it's only 11.5 AAV. So let me take a look, guys. Let me see if anyone else is even close to this. Mike Evans, no. So Brandon Cooks. So here you go. Brandon Cooks signed a 2-year, $39.7 million deal, which is 19.882 AAV, guys. So almost 20. Couple $100,000 short of $20 million AAV. So you would say Dallas is in this boat where they got Brandon Cooks, right? They got Michael Gallup, and now they got to try to figure out what they're going to do in terms of getting CeeDee Lamb under contract. So they're in this boat, right? Gabe Davis just signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, yes, the Jaguars. No, but see, here's the trick of these contracts, guys. 3 years, $39 million for Gabe. That's a $13 million AAV with 11 in signing, 24 guaranteed at signing. I'm sorry, 11 $11 million signing bonus, 24 guaranteed at signing, and 24 practical guaranteed. So even I would say that's kind of rough because if you're going by AAV, I would think Gabe Davis is a pretty controllable contract, to be quite honest. So, yeah, I mean, we're definitely in the territory of a couple other teams, right, to where they have to figure it out. Miami's going to have to figure it out with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Dallas has to figure it out with CeeDee Lamb. The Eagles are going to have to figure it out between, Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown. So, there's a few teams right now that you're seeing are kind of coming into this situation. It's where you figure out the money. And I do think that the way that Jalen Hurts structured his contract is a big reason why we are in play to keep both guys, if I'm being honest. So this is a situation at the contract structure, guys. It's tough because, like I said, it's based upon your previous, production, which Devonta Smith has been productive. I mean, yes, he was short of 1,000 yards his rookie season, but to be honest, if things were a little bit more consistent, he was going to cross that 1,000-yard barrier. Then he's got 2 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons, right? He's pretty good for a good 5 to 7 touchdowns a season easily. You can pretty much depend upon that for him. This is a guy that, if the Eagles had less receiving weapons around them, he's a shoo-in for 1,200-yard seasons every year in terms of his receiving value. So we know that he is a legitimate number one, but I don't think he's in that threshold of the top 5 guys. I don't think he's that dude yet. Now, I do think that he's argumentatively, in terms of the top half, I definitely think he's a top 16 receiver in the NFL right now. I think he's one of the 16 best guys on Sunday that laces it up at the wide receiver spot, to be quite honest. All right, guys. What's up, Eden? How you doing, buddy? What's up, 2020? Hey, man. It's been a while, guys. I apologize. I'm trying to come back full time. Like I said, we got 11-week-old in the house, man, and those nights they're real, bro. When you got to go up at 12 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the morning to feed, man. So that's crazy. You can bring her over, baby. That's fine. Any chance Smitty's agent will tell his client to hold out of OTAs? I don't think so, Richie. I mean, he's still in his rookie deal. He's not even up for his 5th-year option yet. I don't think that would be a problem. Richie, that's a great question. Will he get CeeDee Lamb type money? I don't think so. I think it'll be just slightly below that. But he's going to get paid. the man's going to get paid, man. Devontae would be an all-pro on another team. I don't know about all-pro EEZ because he's not a top 5 guy. He's not a top 5 guy yet. All right. Hi, Lana. This is Lana, guys. Lana Lou, as I call her. You want to say hi? Can you say hi to everybody? Can you say hi? She's knocked out, man. She is knocked out, guys.
You missed her
All right. Oh.
Come here, bug.
I don't know if he would be all pro, but he'd be producing a little bit more numbers there. Yeah, exactly. 2020. I agree with you. Smitty's good. AJ's elite. Yeah, exactly. Is Eagles O-line too cap heavy? If Lane wants to play 3 to 4 more years, will he finish his career as an Eagle? I think that Howie thinks Lane has 2 years left, and then he drafts someone on a rookie deal. I don't think Lane has 3 to 4 years left. I don't see that in him. I think that Lane has other ambitions outside of football, if I'm being honest, Richie. So I do think we're in the final last couple of years of Lane's, his tenure. It's unfortunate, no matter who they draft, no matter what they do, Richie, they can find another really good tackle. The Eagles are really good at developing guys. It's hard to keep pulling Lane Johnsons out, man. That's really difficult, man. I mean, the dude to give up a sack for how many consecutive snaps? I mean, you know what I mean? It's going to be tough. We're going to go through that change. There's no doubt about that, Richie. I think you might be underselling AJ's route running a little bit, Eden. I do agree with you that Devontae's a better route runner, Eden. I agree with that. But I think AJ's being a little undersold in how good of a route runner he is. Draft Fontano at right guard, and then we take him over from Lane at right tackle. If we draft a pure tackle like Guyton, he might have to sit on the bench for 3 years. I think Guyton probably has the highest ceiling, easy. If I'm being honest, I think his ceiling is the highest, but I also think he might be the rawest prospect of all the first-round guys. What's up, William? How you doing, buddy? What's up, Michael? Lori and Howie trust Devontae. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's very trustworthy. You know that you're not going to deal with any headaches with Devonta Smith. He's the type of guy that you want to give the money to. And I do think that they feel secure in paying up front for Devonta. I agree with you, Eden. I think there's definitely a sense that they'll pay up front for his services. I don't think it makes any sense not to trade A.J. Brown after this season or next. You'll easily get a 1 and a 2 if he stays healthy and you trade him with 2 years of control. I mean, we'll see, guys. I'm not I'm not in favor of giving away that kind of talent, guys. I think you try to find a way of doing this contractually to keep both players for as long as you can. Now, there's going to come a point to where AJ will be up for a contract extension. Now you're talking about a guy who plays a physical brand of football, who's now going to be older. That's where I think it can get tough, Bobby, is when you go for that next contract. That's where I think it gets kind of tough to figure out the value of the market if you can do that. But while he's still under contract, I mean, I wouldn't do that right now. But I mean, we just saw him do it with Hassan Reddick, Bobby. So I mean, we'll see. I've learned to never say go too far one way or the other with this organization. You never know. Devontae and Tyreek went for a 1 and a 2 plus more. P. Steve, you have to live, man. Hey, it's all good, guys. I'm hanging in there, man. Gay City, one of my favorite Eagles content creators. Hey, I appreciate that, Jonathan. AJ has bad knees. Keep that in mind. His knees are older than his age. We'll see. Easy. It hasn't been a problem in Philly. They said the same thing about Josh Sweat, and he's been pretty good. Congratulations on your beat. Thanks, Eden. I appreciate that, buddy. Thanks, Teresa. I appreciate that. No team in the NFL is paying 2 number 1 wide receiver contracts and a top 10 quarterback. I don't think that's realistic team building wise. I think it depends on your owner, Bobby. I disagree with that a little bit. It depends on your owner. As I stated before, the more money that you can tie up in guarantees, the more money you can tie up in signing bonuses in particular, the easier it is to allocate and push the money down. As long as TV contracts keep pace, you absolutely can. The Eagles are willing to structure contracts a certain way because of Jeffrey Lurie. Now, the minute that Jeffrey Lurie were to change his mind, Bobby, then I think you're talking about a different reality. Well, we might not necessarily be the first. San Francisco is facing this situation right now. Dallas is facing this situation right now. Miami's facing this situation right now, and Philly. So we're like 1 of 4, you know what I mean, that kind of are falling into that category. 2 maybe. Now, I think the downside of this might be is that they might have to come off of a guy like they might have to draft early at tight end. You know, if you're going to pay 2 top tier wide receivers, you're probably not going to be able to afford Goddard on another contract again. You're probably going to have to get Young behind Goddard. So, I mean, that's kind of the downside. You can't keep everybody unless Goddard's willing to really work a deal out there. Smith is not worse than Amon or Lamb. Imagine him with Reed skimming him open, a legit all-pro candidate. You got to remember, when you're talking about all-pro, though, man, you're talking about the top 3 or 4 guys. I don't know that he's quite that yet. Smith's ceiling is prime Steven Diggs. Mims has the highest ceiling, but big injury risk. Personally, I like Guyton's ceiling a little bit more than I do Mims. Easy. What position do you see as the number 1 priority with the 22nd pick if you were Howie Roseman, and what do you do with the 2 second rounders? This is a tough one, Eden, because contracts matter when you're looking at drafting in the first round. It's got to be at a position that you are willing to encompass a 5th, that optional 5th year option on the contract. I'm not sold they'll do that at safety. I'm not sold they'll do that at linebacker, but I'm hoping that if that's the best player on your board, then it won't matter if you can renegotiate the contract before the 5th year option anyways. But you got to keep that stuff in mind. I definitely think that corner, while it has been a really long time, Eden, you can argue that, hey, Steve, historically speaking, seems unlikely they're going to go corner. I just think that you need to get Young at corner. Corner is a spot to where a 5th year option, probably not a bad deal. That's probably not going to kill you, right? You still like to negotiate that before it hits the 5th year option. But if you had, kind of like with Devontae, right? If you had to go off a 5th year option, you'll do that with Devontae, no problem, right? We did it with Nelson Aguilar. Come on now. You know what I mean? If you came up to a 5th year option on elite talent at corner, I think you're comfortable with having to do that, right? I mean, I think you have to look at the contract valuation there. So I definitely think corner's an area I could see them trading up to go get. If you're in the boat that some of you guys are in here, where you think that We probably only have one more year of Devonta Smith and AJ Brown together. I don't know, guys. I don't think that has to be the case, but I think that's potential. That could be an outcome, of course. So, I mean, if that's the case, then you can make a case that the Eagles might move forward for a receiver if somebody drops out of the top 10 that they feel is a top 12 pick, and they're kind of coming down that board a little bit. I could see Howie making that move up there because that's a position you'd like to keep a fifth-year option on. Offensive line and defensive line, guys. We know offensive line and defensive line don't take fifth-year options on. So for me, cornerback, wide receiver, offensive line, defensive line. That's the areas to me that I think that they value in terms and quarterback, but they're not drafting a quarterback in the first round. That's the areas that I would say, like, you know what I mean? Like, they want that fifth-year option flexibility on the contracts. I think this is a really good edge rusher draft. I do think that the Eagles should probably be a little aggressive with corner. There's a chance we can't get in position for the corner, though. The corner we want. You know what I mean? If they got their eyes set on, like, Arnold, that might be kind of hard to go up there and go get Arnold. Quinion Mitchell, that might be kind of hard to get up there and get Quinion Mitchell, right? So your best bet might be to stay put at corner or even trade backwards a little bit, because I do think there's some decent corners. I wouldn't sleep on a TJ Tampa. I really loved Max Melton's film. That's a credit to you guys. I knew nothing about Max Melton. You guys on one of the live streams kept saying, Steve, please go check this guy out and tell me what you think. I think this is a dude that can play any alignment in the secondary. I think this dude could legitimately be a nickel corner. I think he could legitimately play the boundary. I think he could legitimately play in the field. He's got the hips. He's got the underlying athleticism. He's got the length and the reach to play on the boundary if you need him to. The only thing is I still think he's learning the processing, right? I don't think he's the greatest processor in this draft class right now. But I think the raw data, the raw talent with this guy is pretty high. I like TJ Tampa. I think he's a natural boundary side corner in this draft class. I haven't heard any interest, though, from the Eagles yet. They might be. I mean, I could have just missed it, guys. It's not like I can't hear everything. You know what I mean? Obviously, I got an 11-week-old, so, my source of information is rolling in pretty slow, guys, in terms of what I hear from the rumor mills, if you will. Yeah, I agree, Barkley, that there's definitely a path forward to get all the guys under contract. But I do think that EZ and those guys who have a point that you can't get everybody, though. Somebody's going to get left out, whether it's AJ, whether it's Goddard, you know what I mean? Whether it's basically having to let Lane walk after these next 2 years. Sorry, guys. Somebody, you know what I'm saying? Like, somewhere you got to detract somewhere. But I do think that there is a possibility you keep both guys for another couple of years. I do think that there's like a point of contention at a certain point. Like, when AJ Brown comes back up again for another contract, I'm not saying that it can't be done. I'm saying it gets more difficult because now you're dealing with an older guy, like EZ pointed out. While his knees have been pretty healthy in Philly, we haven't really had a problem with him. That has been, a little bit of a concern with him going back some years now. We got to see, man. Yeah. I remember Lurie was number one in biggest spending, and the Patriots at the bottom in the last 10 years. Cincinnati too. Did they let Boyd walk? Danquan, they let Boyd walk, didn't they? With how young receivers play nowadays, I think you take a shot on a young guy maybe this year, and based on how he plays, will determine if you trade AJ for maximum value next offseason. I think the problem is, Bobby, you got to be careful with getting too cute, though. I know that Nick likes to say that he doesn't like to have alignments for his wide receivers. The bottom line is that you better have a boundary receiver in your offense. We saw what happened to the Eagles after that 2019 season when Alshon started to dip down in 2019, and they didn't have a boundary receiver 19 and 20. 21 as well, they didn't have a boundary receiver. They tried to put Rager out there, remember, playing the boundary. Devontae is serviceable, but he's not a natural boundary guy. I think you get a little too cute, Bobby. You get what I'm saying? You get a little too cute with that. You'll not get more if you trade him for 2 years left, first one. Right. Yeah, I think he set the record. He might have matched it, though, 2020. I thought he said it, but yeah, I don't know, man. I remember he either said it or tied it. I just don't remember which one it was. Busy said, I think it'll take 4 years and 90 mil. I don't think your numbers are that far off, Busy. I agree with you that the contracts I talked about earlier, there were 3-year deals, right? So I talked about DK. I talked about Michael Pittman Jr. I talked about Terry McLaurin, who all signed 3-year extensions. I do think you're going to see a 4-year deal, Busy. I agree with that notion that the Eagles like to work in 4-year increments. So I think you're dead on there. Have you looked at Malachi Corley or Aeneas Smith? Not. I haven't gotten deep into receivers yet, guys. To be honest, I've been spending a lot of time on corners right now. But I'll take a look at everybody, Daquan. To be honest with you, it's hard to keep up with every single position group. To be honest, when it comes to this, I wish I had a staff that can get in here. Maybe one day I can pay a staff and get them in here to help out. But yeah, we'll see, guys. I'll definitely try to work something out eventually. I'll probably spend the last week or two of the draft. I'll take a look at some receiving options because I definitely think they're looking to add some youth. Whether that's a slot receiver, whether that's a future, guy that they can work into being like one of those 1 or 2, that number 1 or number 2 guy. I definitely think that you're going to see some kind of movement at the wide receiver position. I think we need an elite corner. I agree with you, Eden. I think we need another prospect at corner. What do you think of Latu? He struggled against better competition. I can't even say his name easy. Jeez. I'm too tired for this, man. So that worries me a bit. He had like a complex injury history, didn't he? Too easy, if I remember him correctly. Twitchy, kind of speedy. He's got a little bit of size to him, though. I think he's a decent prospect for where they're picking. You get what I'm saying? Easy. I don't think I'd be a top half of the draft guy on him. I don't think he's that. I don't think his college tape is that intriguing in terms of being like a top half of the draft type guy. But I think if you're picking around the 20s, I think he's a pretty decent prospect in that regard. But, I'm curious of what Vic Fangio does in terms of the way he plays these edges now and what he might look for in terms of like the guys that they stack up and they take a look at. What's up, Bill? What's your opinion on drafting Dijon first and then moving up to get Cooper and then hit the trenches? I doubt they'll go cornerback though. Bill, I don't think it's absurd to think that they might go cornerback in the first round this year. I know it's been, like I said, you could definitely make a case historically, say Steve, historically, and it's not been the case. I mean, you got to go back to Lido, man. And you got a point. There's no doubt about that. I mean, we got to go back to previous administrations in terms of the front office to get there, right? With that said, I think that there's been times where, like, even with the running back argument, right, Bill, everyone kept saying, like, well, the Eagles won't take a running back in the first round. They look for the second round when they're looking for guys. Well, I mean, it depends on the prospect because we've seen before that they were willing to make that deal for McCaffrey if he had been there in position for them to get. We knew that was going to be the pick at one point in time. So I think you can make kind of the same thing. Like if they really like a corner, that it is possible that they take that corner in the first round. Cornerback is a position that does make sense for the 5th-year option, Bill, to be honest. You want to be able to, as cost effective as you can for a 4 to 5 year window, especially if you're going to blow a year. If you're going to have and to be honest, Bill, I think if they draft a corner, I think you'll see movement. I think that would probably seal James Bradbury's fate if they go corner in the first round. Now, if they go in the second round, you might get a little bit more of a developmental thing going on there. So he might stick around. But yeah, I mean, it's possible. And then, I'll just tie in Marquise's comment behind you. He said trade for J.C. Horn. I won't name players, but I will say that you can't rule out, trades during the draft, right? I mean, we see now he do this for the last few years. He's done that. DeAndre Swift last year, the year prior, A.J. Brown, Marquise Goodwin in the day 3, not in the third round, but day 3 of the draft. And it was at 2020, I think, was Marquise Goodwin, right, guys? So, I mean, like, we know that he will try to improve the roster on draft day through the trade market. So, you know what I mean? Like, you can't rule it out. One guy neutralized him. He's a good prospect, though. I mean, that's, from what I'm hearing, is that's Jeff Statlin's, like, the guy he wants. We'll see. Kalen Carson, Jerryon Jones, and Dijon brought in for 30 visits, all slot corners with outside versatility. Seems like a Fangio thing. Yeah, I mean, Jerryon Jones is definitely a slot corner. I don't know if I'd play Jerryon Jones on the outside personally, easy. I guess you could play him as a field, if the hips are fluid and stuff, but I'd be a little scared with him matched up on the boundary on a Mike Evans. I think he's just giving up too much there easy, to be honest, but every coach is a little different. You know what I mean? Every scheme's a little different. It's tough to say in terms of that. I mean, I will say that right now, I think we have really good size, really good length out there, but we don't have good footwork anymore. James Bradbury seems to have lost a little bit, but he's going to be a little bit more on off coverage this year, easy. I do expect Fangio to play him a little bit more on off. So I don't think he'll be as exposed as he was the year prior. So we'll see. Yeah, top 30 visits can obviously mean interest. Obviously easy, you know that. It could also just be they want to check some things up on him. It could be they want to check their knowledge against film. They might want to get a feel for the young man. Who knows? You know what I mean? Like top 30s aren't a shoe-in, but it definitely means there's something there they wanted to check out. Could be positive, could be negative. Hard to say with top 30 visits. I agree. That's why I think you could see us take an X receiver, not a slot. If we take someone in round 2, everyone assumes it will be a slot guy. I think the boundary guys are in play for that reason. Yeah, then I would agree with you on that one, that if they're going to do, like I said, Bobby, I don't know. I can't say that I you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't have thought they would have traded. If I'm being honest, I wouldn't have thought they would have traded Reddick. That one kind of caught me off guard a little bit. I mean, once the contracts rolled out the way they rolled out with Sweat signing his, not signing an extension, but reworking his deal. I mean, you could clearly say that the writing was on the wall a little bit there. Still surprised me, man. Reddick has still got 2 or 3 really productive years left in him. But I think Fangio wants something a little different. I mean, from what I understand, is this was a Fangio and Reddick conversation, and they were, they weren't in agreement with things. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I don't think you can rule it out. Boyd is still a free agent, surprisingly. Yeah, good player. Did you speak on the Reddick trade yet? What are your thoughts? I was just talking about that right now, Mike. It caught me off guard a little bit, Mike, to be honest with you. I don't think it's doom and gloom. I saw a lot of people that think it's doom and gloom. I think that Vic's on the clock. If you trade this and you lack a pass rush, and it ain't going to look good, you know what I mean? Especially if Reddick goes off with the Jets. But I don't think it's doom and gloom necessarily, right? You may not be able to individually replace Reddick's production, but you might be able to piecemeal it together with a better overall supporting cast altogether. I just think that at some point, if you're going to get a real dog out there at edge, you're going to pay 25, 30 million for him. Now, you could make the argument, Mike, that, look, they probably want that in a year or two younger prospect when it comes up for that contract, not a 30-year-old. You can always structure the contract, though. You know what I'm saying? It could have been a 3-year deal. It's really a 2-year deal. There's different ways of getting that done. It doesn't have to be a 4 or 5-year deal. But it turned out the way it turned out. It's the business side of football, man. I really liked Reddick. I thought Reddick fit our city really well. Obviously, being a guy from Camden himself. That's why you can't get emotionally attached to players, man. They're here one day and they're gone the next, unfortunately. With the SEC receivers getting better, cornerback has to be important. These receivers look like they are and one players. And yeah. I mean, the SEC is a good conference overall. You got a lot of talent there. The wide receiver in South Carolina, there's a lot of potential. There's a chance to get him in the second round. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, he's physical like AJ. He's like a weird combination. He's not quite Debo. I can see people because of the South Carolina connection. Debo's a South Carolina guy himself. He's from the state of South Carolina. But also, he's like somewhere in between AJ. I don't think he runs as much as the underneath stuff that you see Debo do. Debo's a little bit more like almost like a hybrid running back receiver. I think he's like somewhere between that Debo and AJ type kind of like build to him and in the way he plays the game a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it's still, it's a lottery ticket. You get what I'm saying, man? It's a lottery ticket. We don't know if it'll work out, but I agree with the evaluation that that's the kind of guy you want out there on the boundary. That's the kind of guy that you want to take a shot at to see if he could be something. Just no more Ragers who were a little, their Rager was built well, but he just was slight of frame in terms of the wingspan and the length. And they were trying to play him as a boundary. He couldn't gain separation on top of it. Like it was, as long as they don't do any crap like that again. Yeah, you need assistance. Laugh out loud. There's so many I haven't looked at myself, just guys I like personally. Yeah, I watch a lot of college football, so I've seen a lot of these guys play before, but to say that I've watched them with a fine-tooth comb underneath film, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of, especially with the baby in the house guys, like I'm not going to say that. We should prioritize corner above D-line in the draft. for the reason that corners don't hit the free agency market, but good D linemen are available every year. Smitty will not take less than Calvin Ridley. We'll see. I mean, I'm not going to say what he will or won't do because, Dave, you got to understand that every agent, every player in the contract structure is different for everybody. Some people don't care. Like, if you want to chase headline news, oh, he got $90 million over 4 years, but the internals of the contract are just dookie, then you know what I'm saying? Like that's not going to work out for you as a player. Like you're not going to enrich yourself to the greatest possibility there. So it may not look exactly like the total numbers per se, although I think it's in the neighborhood. I think it'll be around 4 years, 90 million. That's about what I would get a read on what the situation would be personally as well. But I don't think that he's going to, I have the sneaky suspicion he's going to get more than 20 million in a signing bonus, David, if I'm being honest. I think his signing bonus is going to be higher. Is guaranteed at signing. That's going to be an interesting number because I think Calvin really actually got a lot guaranteed at signing. So that could be a little tough because if you're talking about 60 some percent guaranteed at signing, that's a big figure. But Jeffrey Lurie's he's not scared to spend money. So, and obviously if you're giving out a big bonus, then it's going to give you a lot of money in terms of guaranteed at signing. So we'll see, David. I mean, it's tough to say, man. The other way you can get a lot of guaranteed at signing is you can guarantee like that first year of the deal. You can pretty much fully guarantee it. And that gives you a pretty big guarantee at signing. That first year, that cap number. I think it's weird how the media is so stringent on telling us what the Eagles won't do, like they know. Yeah, that's the tough part, right? that is always the tough part is like, we know what we perceive things to be. The media knows what they perceive things to be, but who knows what happens behind a closed door? That's the thing is like, we don't know what happens behind these closed doors. You're still talking about individual men at the end of the day, right? You know, everybody's going to jockey and try to get position for their own interest. And I do think we have a pretty good culture here, but yeah, I'm careful about that stuff too, to where it's like, this is what I think. I'm not guaranteeing crap because, you know, hey, Reddick's a good example. Never think that you know something completely. I think Fontu is the guy stout once. Yeah, that's what I heard too, X-Trice. They've met with him multiple times and Stout put him through a separate workout. You think that's who they might climb the draft board to go get, basically? Probably depends on where he gets drafted, to be honest. What up, Coach? What's going on, Cody? Bradbury can't start. No way. I'm not going to say he can't start easy because I think the system, the way that Vic plays his corners, is a little different from what they were trying to do last year. But I definitely think there needs to be an exit strategy. It's not a good look to have two 30-year-old corners, two corners over 30 years old, man. Like, you got to get young. At some point, you got to rip the Band-Aid off and let the young guys play. I mean, if it was me, I'd keep a veteran. Like, my thing is you still need veteran leadership. And I know people are all over Slay, but you got to have someone who could be outspoken. You know, Fletch being gone. I look at the defense. You still got Brandon Graham there, but if Brandon Graham's not going to have the same type of role he's had previously, to where he's going to get a certain percentage of snaps, if we're moving away from Brandon Graham being the third most repped guy, if we're moving away from that, it's harder for him to have that kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, it's got to be the young dudes, and there's got to be a veteran that's playing the majority of snaps. Has to be one of those vocal leaders. I do worry about that a little bit on the defensive side of the ball. I think the offense is fine. Jalen's there. AJ's there. Lane's there. You know what I mean? Like, they got dudes that could speak up and take control of the situation. Defensively, I do worry about that a little bit. But that worry is really about the unknown easy. It's a lot of presumption on my part. So I don't know who those vocal people are. And like, I'm not there. You know what I mean? So there's some presumption there. But it does worry me that, like, you know, we're detracted Fletch. I think that was a big piece in terms of the locker room culture. In terms of the play, I think his play is replaceable. I really want to draft Braylon Allen. How long do you think he'll be on the board? Oof, Tyler Walker. That's tough to say, man. At this point, I don't believe a lot of the rumors I'm reading, if I'm going to be honest about any player, because this is the season for deception when it comes to these players. So I'm always a little bit skeptical about what I'm reading and like kind of what I hear. Let me see if I can find a trusted source here, and I'll give you an idea of like what I think his perceived value will be in terms of draft stock. See, that's always the tough part is you have to have someone you trust and you feel has got a good source to the front offices of the league because everyone's different. You have to know the scheme fit and then how they fit in terms of that scheme. That's going to be your issue. I think you're talking about probably a day 3 running back. I know a lot of you guys want that size. You want a guy that can play with a little power. Oh man, let's see. Damn. See, here's the thing. When you're looking at Braylon Allen, I think the problem you're going to have, and the source I'm using is Lance Zierlein because I think he's more balanced than a lot of these guys are, to be honest, Taylor. So I would read anything you can read from Lance Zierlein. He's going to give you a lot of the truth there. The 33rd team, they're pretty decent too. They don't always get things right. There's sometimes I think they miss a little bit, but you got a good combination of former players, media personnel, former coaches, and former executives from the league that are all kind of involved there. I think it's going to depend upon if a team views him as a true 3-down back. Is this a true 3-down back that they're looking at? I still think that you're looking at 3rd to 5th round, somewhere in that area. I think it's going to depend upon the team. I think it's going to depend upon the way they view him. That's the difference. Obviously, the 3rd round to the 5th round is the difference between day 2 and day 3, but that's the problem with these running backs, man, is that I've seen guys that have less talent than Braylon Allen go in the 3rd round before. So I'm not going to automatically say that he's just a guaranteed day 3 guy. He could slip in day 2, but I think he's between that 3rd round to 5th round. I think that's the window where you'll see him come off the board. I believe last year, Carter, Smith, Steen, Brown, and Ringo all had 30 visits. Yeah, it's not like the thing with it easy is it doesn't indicate that they will or won't draft a guy. It just indicates that they want more intel on the player. That could be a good thing. Could be a bad thing. You know what I mean? Like, I do think generally speaking, it's a good idea to see who the top 30 visits are, because even if they don't draft that particular player, it will give you a pretty dang good idea of what positions they're coveting, right? It looks like to me they're looking at edge rushers. They're looking at offensive linemen. They're looking at corners. To me, that so far from what we saw roll out from the top 30, I'm surprised we haven't seen more receivers. But that, I think they only got 18 out of the 30 done so far, or reported. I shouldn't say done, but reported so far. So yeah. The Huff signing was the final blow. I look back 15 years, and on average, Eagles draft at least 2 top 30 visit guys, sometimes more or less, but the Eagles generally grab a guy or 2 that visited more than some other teams. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to draft a guy in the 1st round, I don't want to say all of them because I don't think guys, check me. Bobby, check me if I'm wrong here. I don't think Andrew Dillard was a top 30 visit, but I also think they didn't expect him to be in position to be drafted that year. But generally speaking, if you're looking at a pick in the 1st round or a very high 2nd round pick, that guy's probably going to be someone you bring in on the top 30, more than likely. I think there are some cases to where, like, you know what I mean? Like you can't get that guy in, you know what I mean? Like you're not expecting that guy to be there, like the Andre Dillard situation, but most of the time in the 1st round, that's probably a true statement. I think when you get into day 3, it's harder. You know what I mean? People are underrating Huff. His tape and numbers were better against good tackles compared to Sweat and Reddick, who disappeared against better competition. We'll see. I mean, I don't dislike Josh Huff. Easy. I still think that you're talking about 1 year. You know what I mean? And we have to see if he can duplicate it. I mean, obviously the Eagles they're betting on it. They're betting that he will. I think he's a really good speed guy. I think he's a really good speed rusher, and I think his speed to power was pretty good on tape. I'm curious. Like, I've seen a lot of people say that he won't fit. He's not going to be a good run defender. I would probably argue that you have to understand the way that the run fits work inside of each scheme and system. For the Jets, that may have been a true statement. Their run fits are different from Vic Fangio's. With Vic Fangio, I think the run fits are a little different. And I think that when they talked about the Eagles freelancing, that's what they were referring to, is that guys were leaving containment on running plays, and that was allowing a lot of the outside runs for interior pressure. They were trying to get up and try, you know what I mean? That's what that report was about Reddick and the sack thing. I thought it was very poorly worded, easy. I mean, I'll be straightforward. I thought that was like the worst way you could ever word something, but I understood what they were trying to say. The visits could go negative like it did with Darius Geis and Deuce Staley. Yeah. Speaking of South Carolina, Dawn Staley is an Eagle fan. That's pretty cool. I'm looking forward to seeing Kaylee Ringo play this year. I hope he gets the opportunity. They're playing him as a field corner. So he's behind Slay right now. Probably a good thing because he's so young, Eden. I mean, he's younger than the vast majority of these corners that are probably going to be first round picks. I can't remember who it was, but someone broke down his age compared to like Quinion Mitchell and these guys. And he's younger than they are, to be quite honest. So, I mean, he needed the time to develop, to be quite honest, about the situation. So, I mean, I think he landed in the right spot. You know, no matter what anyone wants to say about Slay, I do trust Slay's footwork. I trust Slay as a professional on game day. I hope it translates, guys. I hope it translates because Ringo definitely has some athleticism. He's definitely intriguing. I do think that sometimes when people are critical of him, sometimes the age gets left out. The fact that he's so freaking young as a player. I mean, this guy was taking notes in a high school not that long ago. Gabe, who do you want in the first round? I don't have a specific player, Matt. I'll say that I think we need a corner. I think we need a cornerback, personally. I really, really liked Quinion Mitchell's film. I like Terrion Arnold's film. McKinstry, I think, is a tough evaluation because he has the fracture in his foot. You're dealing with a fracture in your foot, which is a bit of a problem. I don't know how much emphasis you can put on his testing because, I mean, the guy was gutting through it. And he's gutting through it on a foot injury. Like that's kind of tough to grade and judge him like that. But I thought his film, you know, if you look at the totality of his film, not just this season, this previous season, but I thought he was a decent player, to be quite honest. I think he's a decent guy. I'm really high on Max Melton in terms of the cornerback position. I like TJ Tampa's film. I think he played pretty tough. If I had to bet, man, it just feels like they're going to go offensive line in the first round. You know, they don't mind stacking guys. I know we hate it. We want a guy that can make a more sudden impact. Even at corner, there's the possibility that guy doesn't make an immediate impact, but he's going to make an impact faster than, you know, a right tackle, unless that right tackle can play right guard. If the right tackle can play right guard, he's probably going to make an immediate impact. But, yeah, I mean, that's a tough one, man. I take Edge Cooper at 22 personally, but doubt they will. Yeah, I think he's a second-round guy. Yeah, I guess it depends because I saw some people, like when I broke down the edge rushers with Vic Fangio's and I talked about Cooper, I told you guys that I noticed on his film that he's a decent edge rusher. I mean, if you look at the way that Jonathan Gannon was using Kaiser White, this is a better built, a better put together version of that. A guy who's a little more effective as a pass rusher. He's not quite Kaiser White in coverage, but he's not horrible. And this dude really is instinctual with the run. He can close on it. He can close down the run, to be honest. He's got a really good pursuit. We'll see. I mean, I think if they view him as kind of like this quasi-edge player that can also play off-ball, there's a possibility. But I think it has to be with that evaluation first. Now, if they're viewing him specifically as an off-ball who will very occasionally, like Kaiser White, play as an overhang, then I think you're probably looking at a day 2 evaluation, not day 1. Thoughts on Cooper DeShawn as a corner. Eagles might like his versatility and look to him to use in the slot as a corner like they do with CJ GJ. I don't think that they would do that in terms of a slot corner in the first round, Mike. That's kind of a tough sell, to be honest. If they like him as an outside corner and they want to play him on the boundary, sure. I think he's got the kind of size that could do that. I think he could play in the boundary. If you want him to be the replacement for James Bradbury, I think that makes some sense. I do think that you can make a case. I know some people hate this because they think we're only making the evaluation because he's white. That's not true. I'm just saying that based upon the way he plays the game, I think he's better playing with the ball in front of him, to be quite honest. I think he would be a really, really good matchup guy as a strong safety. I think he's a guy that can really come down and take away larger, taller receivers. I think he's smart. I think he can communicate the defense. And I also think he would be, when you're dealing with these more athletically gifted tight ends, this is a guy that has a fighting chance. I'm not saying they're going to use him as a strong side, safety in terms of the league, but I don't hate the idea either. I don't think Howie would move up in the first round to draft a lineman. I don't know, man. I don't know about that one. I think Bowers would be a great fit as a tight end too in this offense. Then become Goddard's replacement. What I don't want is Chop or Worthy. Besides athleticism, I don't understand why people like Chop. I don't know. I'm not going to say I'm still working a little bit on Chop film, to be honest. So I don't have a strong opinion either way, Bill. My guess is they will let Ringo, Ricks, Bradbury battle for the CB number 2 job. Sorry, easy. In camp. And if they all suck, we will get another vet. In my opinion, I think Ringo will win it. I'm a big fan of the Eagles' 2024 season. Eagles' new edge linebacker draft Georgia and Alabama and Texas. What's up, little G Griffith? How you doing, buddy? I don't think Howie would move up in the first round for an O lineman. I think I read that one already, but we'll see, man. When they draft top 16, there's normally a pattern here of who they select, man. So if they're moving up, I can tell you they're not getting. They won't be able to get. I highly doubt to get Fontano. Is that how you say his name, guys? At 22, I don't think he's going to be there at 22. So if that's their target, they're going to have to move up for him. How far they move up, I don't know. You should do a mock draft. We're going too easy. I do it every year. We're going to. I do mine live. I think adding another edge is a must. Nolan and Sweat have shoulder and knee concerns. BG is older now. Swift has never carried a full load. I could see the season derailed if another body ain't in here. Yeah, 2020. I mean, you could definitely make a case there, man. Huff, not Swift. Yeah, I got it. I knew who you meant, man. I can read from the context of the other players. Dillard fell. Yeah, I remember him falling. I just don't remember if they had him in for a top 30 visit. I don't think they did. Hey, Coach, good to see you. Do you think there's anything to the rumor of the Eagles trading for Patrick Surtain? If so, how would that change the Eagles' draft strategy? They probably wouldn't have a first-round pick. You probably lose a first, and you probably lose one of your seconds on that one. You got to pay him. He's going to be quite expensive, that's for sure. I mean, look, Patrick Surtain's a great player, Drew. I'd take him. I would take him if he's available. I don't know if that's going to be the reality of the situation, but I mean, I wouldn't hate it. And you got a lockdown guy. You got a true number 1 lockdown guy on top of it. 2020 said, I think adding another edge is a must. Nolan and Sweat. Yeah. I agree with you, man. Yeah. I don't think they used Huff to defend the run. He was more situational pass rusher. Huff was primarily signed to free up Carter from double teams on third down. We need a big year from Davis and Smith, but I don't know what to expect from them. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they manage the tackles easy in terms of third down. I'm curious if that's going to be Milton Williams. Are they going to play Jordan Davis more on third down? It's going to be an interesting one. Jonah Ellis has intrigued me. Dude's a bullet. China said Huff is talented, but not seeing Reddick. What's up, China? How you doing? So far that. What's up, Aishan? How you doing, bro? We still have a lot of young guys from last year. What about Cooper DeShawn, coach? Jack of all trades, corner. I like him. Yeah, I really would love to see him play as a strong, to be honest with you. But I mean, if you're going to play him as a boundary, I think he's got the physicality. I think he's got acceptable enough arm reach to play out there. And I think you can line him up against the bigger, more physical wide receivers, and he stands as good a chance as any other corner in terms of that aspect of it. He's a little tight-hipped at times, I'm not going to lie. But you can make the same case about Ringo. Ringo's an incredible athlete, but he's a little tight-hipped at times. Sometimes sometimes it is a lack of hip mobility. A lot of times it's a lack of footwork. You'll see a lot of guys when they get tight-hipped, they have a tendency to be a little high in their back pedal. That's kind of the downside of the taller corners, right? I mean, you're never going to accuse Devonta Smith of being too high in his back pedal, right? He's only like, what, 5'9"? But if you got a 6'2" guy or something like, you know what I mean? Like, I think it is a little bit more common for those guys to be a little tall in their back pedal, which can cause a little bit of that hip tightness. Boy had a good season, Reddickman, trailing Garrett for the past 4 seasons. Yeah. What's up, Chin? How you doing, bro? He says O-line actually makes sense this year. Lane usually misses a game or two. Cooper didn't test at the combine, but I love his highlight tape. Very skilled defensive back. Yeah, for me, Mr. Sandman. What's up, Mr. Sandman? By the way, speaking of someone that if I ever started this up and could actually pay some people to come in here and do commentary and comb through tape with me, and we could put out prospect grades, Mr. Sandman would be one of those guys, man. You know, it's the guy who played collegiately. It's the guy who understands the trenches, defensive line, offensive line work. I love picking these guys' minds, man. That's why, you know, Mr. Sandman, my guy Jalen Williams, my guy Caleb, Caleb Brennan. I love picking these guys that played on the trenches. I've gained a lot of respect. For these guys, man. They're smart. They're smart guys. But yeah, I like his tape too, Mr. Sandman. I agree with you. I don't know what he's going to be in the league. You know, it's hard to say because he's one of these dudes that, like, you know, earlier points, he pretty much could play almost every alignment in the secondary and be, you know, somewhat successful. I think for me, I'd like to play him more as a boundary corner or like a strong side safety. If I'm playing him on the outside, I'm going to play him as a boundary corner. If I'm going to play him inside, I'll probably play him as a strong, but instead of a nickel. But, you know, these slot corner or slot receivers are getting taller. So you might see that uptick with these slot corners in return. AJ always open. Brown says, I just hope whoever we get in the first round and the second round pick has to play, bro. No more riding the bench. Chopper Jean would be 2 guys that could come right in and play. Speaking of Jalen, what's up, Jalen? How you doing, bro? Dejon at safety makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I mean, I think he could play. Like I said, he's one of these guys that could pretty much play any alignment. He's talented. He's definitely talented. Like, if I'm sitting there at 22 and I'm trying to figure it out, you know what I mean? Like, I probably would take a shot there. I mean, I know the history there, guys, and it's going to be tough, man, because we're going to get dogged. If we make the pick, we're going to get dogged. We all know it when it comes down to it. The last time I can remember a high caliber cornerback that was of my persuasion, guys, who played at a high level was like Jason. I think Jason Sehorn was the last one I can remember. I know they drafted a kid last year, though. There's another kid that came up, another white boy that came up and is playing outside, I believe, at corner. So, I mean, we're going to deal with that. You know, that's going to be part of the discussion. But I kind of agree with LB. I saw LB's take on Twitter, and LB was just like, you know, I mean, from a football standpoint, you know, minus the, you know, the fact that there's not a lot of white corners in the league, like from a football standpoint, what's the limitation? I do think he's a little tall. Sometimes I don't think he gets, you know, I think he gets tall in his back pedal because of his height. But with that said, I mean, it's what the league's for. That's why you have defensive back coaches. You know, I don't think there's an underlying athletic issue there. I don't think it's a lack of athleticism on his part. Dejon just doesn't move in phase good enough in coverage. I ain't taking him at cornerback in the first few rounds. Here comes 2020. I like how you don't do all the clickbait nonsense and how smart you are with no dirty language, just good, sensible analysis. You deserve a bigger audience. Hey, I appreciate that, Matt. Get it. That's great content. Thanks, you guys. I appreciate that. Right now, I got the baby, so I can't really curse anyways. Howie would move up for anything he wants. Laugh out loud. Yeah. That's the thing. Is like it's hard to like state what he will or won't do. Aishan said, knowing Howie, he's banking on counting on Isaiah Rodgers, Ringo, and Tyler from the Raiders for the slot positioning, Ishan. They also signed Avante back too. So, I mean, yeah, Maddox. Ishan, my bad. If I'd have just read the next word, Maddox and Eli Ricks to play slot or a Bradbury spot, unless Bradbury gets back from his, yeah, with Fangio. Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's interesting. They're throwing a lot of darts at the board, Ishan. They're definitely throwing a ton of darts at the board. I like Isaiah Rodgers as well. I think there's, you never know when a guy's been out for a year, but I think there's something to him. I think that athleticism is a little underrated. If they view Cooper DeShawn as a safety first that has slot versatility, could you see them making the pick in the first round, Mike? That's a great question, Mike. I don't know. I don't know if they value that position with a fifth-year option, right? If we go back to my earlier point, Mike, about the position, the alignments you want the fifth-year option on, I think you can make a case that's the position they may not want. But safety isn't getting any cheaper either. You know what I mean? Like maybe Howie reopens the thinking there and says, you know what? I got to reevaluate where the league's going with these contracts though too. So maybe that opens them up like the struggles we've had at safety the last few years. Trying to get the contracts we want, trying to get the players we want. Maybe that opens them up to saying, a fifth-year option on a guy that is a lockdown dude that could have potentially a Malcolm Jenkins-like kind of role for the defense. I'm not saying he'd be Malcolm Jenkins from day one, guys. That would be mad disrespectful to Malcolm Jenkins. And I'm not even going to bring up Dog. That's really, really disrespectful. But I'm saying a guy that could be, that kind of core piece to your defense, if you will. But I think the flip side of this, Mike, which I think is a more convincing argument is, Steve, do you really and honestly in your heart of hearts believe that they're going to give up after giving an extension to Reed Blankenship? Because wouldn't Reed really be slotted in to probably play the role of strong this year with, allowing, CJ Gardner-Johnson to freelance as the free? I think that's probably the better argument. And then you have Sidney Brown coming up behind all this. I think those are valid points, Mike, that if they do draft him, it's probably going to be as an outside cornerback, and he's probably going to be playing, I would think, more so towards the boundary side. You can make the argument that the Eagles don't really qualify boundary from field. They just do left and right cornerback, and they're not going to flip their guys depending on if the boundary is on the left or the right side. But traditionally speaking, when you look at the way they align, that right cornerback is generally speaking the boundary corner. So I think he'd probably be a right cornerback for the Eagles. So, I mean, my roundabout thinking on this, Mike, I'm giving you this as I'm thinking it, sir. This is how I'm thinking it as you asked the question. Focus isn't on zone more than man. I say that because we aren't drafting a cornerback with that first pick. It will be an O lineman or a defensive edge or defensive tackle, to be honest, and put Carter on the edge. I don't know, Ishan. I wouldn't look past the corner. I agree that if their boards are even, if the players are even on their boards between an edge rusher, an offensive lineman, and a cornerback, they're going trenches before they go outside. I agree with that statement. But I don't know that they're going to be even in the scoring on what will be available at 22. Or earlier if they trade up. Michael said, I really do believe we go D-line or O-line. What's up, South Jersey? He said, Coach, what's your thoughts on a possible trade this draft like a Josh Allen? I don't think it's insane, man. I don't think it's insane. Yeah, I don't think it's an insane assumption. We saw that it may not be a first round. It may not be a blockbuster name. Last year, it was DeAndre Swift. The year prior, it was A.J. Brown. We had, not that it worked out, but, day 3 of the draft back in 2020, they were trying to build that speed. Remember, they drafted Rager, they drafted Hightower, they drafted Quez, and they went out there and they traded. It's funny how none of these guys really worked out. But we understood what they were trying to do here. But they also went after Goodwin, Marquise Goodwin, right? So, I mean, we see that Howie's not opposed to doing that. You know what I mean? Like, so I wouldn't rule it out, South Jersey. I absolutely would not rule that out, especially if they don't love day 3 of the draft. If they don't love what's inside of day 3, you know what I mean? They may either trade those picks out for, 2025 or 2026 picks, or they'll trade for players. I'm just hoping that another team falls in love with some of these day 3 prospects when we don't, if that's the case. He sure does, Mike. Yeah. What's up, Samuel? Gate, based on your overall view, is it possible with all the changes taking place within the organization, can the Birds have a successful season and make the playoffs? Honestly, I think they're definitely a playoff team. I definitely think they're a playoff team. I definitely think the talent level is there to be a playoff team. I think the real question, Samuel, is are they a deep playoff team? Is this a team that can make a deep run? And I don't think that can be proven until we get on the field and see all the pieces come together. AJ always open says, I hope to God we draft Xavier Legit. Yeah, that's the dude from South Carolina. Dude's pretty much an AJ Brown clone, could be the perfect replacement. Yeah, we kind of had that conversation earlier when we were talking about, I think it was Easy, myself, or maybe it was Bobby Boucher. I can't remember. We were having a conversation. We were talking about the contract situation and then kind of like, you know, if you're going to draft a slot receiver, that's probably not pushing AJ Brown out the door. And if you're going to go get a receiver, don't be cute about it. Go get you a boundary side receiver. You need a guy that can win on third down. You need a guy that can catch contested footballs. You know what I mean? You need that body. I like that player a lot too, AJ. Like him a lot too. Would you be good with drafting Worthy at 22? His tape is better than his numbers. Dude was a victim of many inaccurate throws. Whew. My understanding is scouts are really high on him. Easy. I'm not going to say that man, that's a tough one. Easy. I need to do more research before I come on here and say something definitive when it comes to Worthy. I know that the rumblings are scouts are higher on this guy than the media is. Man, it's an excellent question. Let me get back to you on that one, man. Let me get back to you on that one. Thanks for the shout out. Hey, no problem, Jalen. No problem, bro. You guys, you, Caleb, you know, my guy, Mr. Sandman, you guys have taught me a lot about ball. This draft is stacked with O-line, especially tackles and wide receivers. If we are lucky, an edge and quarterback could drop to 22 and get a tackle like Mims or Guyton in round 2 and then pick up a wide receiver with that second round 2 pick. You'd be okay with it. Dejon did just work out and killed it too. He lit it up, scored a 124 out of 2,800 in the test. They've been doing since the 80s. I can see Fangio using Deshaun all over the field. Worthy at 22, nah, can't see it. I'd be peed. Riley Cooper. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Screen just rolled up on me more. I hate when it does this. My bad, guys. Really? It's going to make me grab and pull up. All right. Riley Moss, who played with Cooper at Iowa. There's also the safety that from Minnesota. I had a chance to look at a couple of his games. He was pretty good. He looks like a ball player to me. I just don't know where the Eagles are going to be in terms of safety position. You know, I still think they need a body personally, but I don't know where they view that need in the grand scheme of things. You could make the case that, you know, CJ Gardner-Johnson is not necessarily a long-term solution per se, that they may not be looking at it that way. I hope that's not the case. I hope CJ's here for a good, another 2 to 4 years, but you could definitely make that case, Dejon. To hell with race. Talent is talent. We have to chill on all that. Cooper is talented, no doubt, coach. Yeah, we know we're gonna face it though. Sorry, guys. If we draft them, we're gonna hear it. I already know that's gonna be all over Twitter. If one of the top corners fall out of the top 10 to 12, I think he'll try trading up. If not, probably O-line. Interesting that you mentioned height slowing down defensive backs. Last year, I didn't like Kyle Hamilton because he's 6'4". He's a big dude, but apparently he has a good rookie season. I didn't catch any Ravens games. Yeah, he's an interesting dude, Kyle Hamilton. Yeah, he's an interesting guy. There's a couple of guys I think have beat the odds. You can go all the way back to, the Seattle Legion of Boom days, right? You go back to Richard Sherman. He was like 6'3", 6'4". Not a speed demon, just a really good technician. probably had to do a lot of work in terms of that back pedal, in terms of that footwork. It's a tough one, man, because the taller you are, the harder you could scream at a guy to get low in his stance, but it's tough. I mean, taller you are, it's a lot easier for sub 6 foot guys are going to have a much easier time in their back pedal. There's no doubt about it. What's good, Gates? What's up, Dante? How you doing, buddy? Mr. Simmons says, thanks for the shout out, Gate. Talking football with you was awesome. You're a true football aficionado. Hey, I appreciate that, man. Here comes Easy. So you got to be careful with these versatility guys who are good but not great at their positions. Remember Isaiah Simmons, who was supposed to be a Swiss Army knife. Yeah. Call me crazy, Easy, but I think I would have taken a shot at him at safety if I was the Eagles, just as that hybrid role guy. I think the problem is the contract, right? He's like, he's not going to just sign for peanuts, and probably why he's still on the free agency market. But I do wonder what he would be able to do inside this system as a third or fourth guy. But yeah, you're right. I get what you're saying. That the utility knife you can't have too many of them, right? You don't want a team. It's like a baseball team. You don't want a baseball team full of utility men. Dudes, guys got to be good at the position they play. I agree. I hate the idea of having another Andre Dillard situation, drafting too far into the future. What's up, JT? Says, what's up, Gate? Any thoughts on Darius Robinson out of Mizzou? I think his size versatility would be a plus for the defensive line room. I would not look past the defensive line. I do think at some point we're going to see some form of movement on these D linemen. I think they have to. You know what I mean? My guy iShine with the $4.99 super chat said, I would be upset if we get a wide receiver in the first 2 rounds. Edge, offensive line, cornerback, linebacker, safety, tight end, running back, in my honest opinion. Great content as always. Hey, appreciate you, iShine. He resigned with the Giants. I just saw that down there. Sorry, guys. Let me read a little fashion. My bad, guys. Eagles got to get Edge Cooper in the second round. Him and Devin White starting at linebacker would be fire. If we draft an O lineman, it's got to be a tackle with guard versatility so he can play or compete this year. That might be kind of what they're looking at, or they'll go with a natural guard if they want to push Steen. I would like to see Steen get an opportunity. How do you think my Sooners in Texas will do in the SEC? I mean, from a talent perspective, Texas it's a recruiting ground. You know what I mean? I think this is going to help open up the Southeast to them. It's going to help them get into Georgia, probably help them get into Florida a little bit. Not that it's such a tough thing because Texas can use their name. Oklahoma can use their name. You know what I mean? Like to get into that area, but maybe it gives them a little bit of edge for some players here and there. As a guy that's in the ACC, NC State, I don't love that because now it opens up our borders a little bit more to those programs as well. And we've been on a pretty good run. We're building a legitimate top 25 program. And you start getting Texas and Oklahoma sneaking into our grounds. That's not that doesn't bode well for these mid programs like NC State. But it is what it is, man. The NIL money too. That's going to be a big deal. Were you high on Nolan Smith coming out of the draft? Do you have high hopes for him this season? Mike, I did like his film because I thought he was a better run defender for his size than I thought he would be. When I went to his tape, I was a little shocked at how well he played the run. I definitely knew he was a raw edge rusher, but a lot of talent, a lot of athleticism. The toolbox, man. We can talk about the toolbox all we want, but the toolbox has got to be there. And Mike, he's got to show that. We need to see that. You need a tight end. I like Dallas Goedert. I think he's a pretty good tight end. But I think we definitely need to evaluate the tight end 2 spot. I think they got hopes that Albert O is going to be a guy in that room, but yeah. Nolan no-show Smith. I think it's a little early, guys. I'm not going to write him off yet. 2020 said everyone will hate me for this, but I'd draft Xavier and trade Smitty next season. Smitty ain't elite to pay $27 million a season. AJ is 26 and lead. If I can only keep one, it's AJ. Oof. Whoosh, 2020. Coach, how ridiculous are these Parsons to Philly rumors? I'm not even going to ask your opinion because I know it's nonsense. Laugh out loud. Very unlikely. I don't. Dallas would have to be insane to trade him in division to Philly on top of the in division thing. If he gets free from Dallas, I don't know. I mean, it could get interesting, but if you want Micah Parsons, you're going to pay. You know what I mean? Like, Micah's going to want that contract. He's going to definitely want 30-some mil a year. I guarantee you that. So, I mean, that's going to get mighty expensive. Simmons re-signed with the Giants. People aren't really talking about it because we definitely need a tight end. I agree they got to grab somebody. Davis is a bust. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion there, time for the UFL, but I don't think Davis is a bust. I think he's good at what his role is. I think he's a run stuffer. I think he's a true nose tackle. I think that they're banking on some upside in his pass rush ability that hasn't been realized yet. I know Worthy is not an X, but there is some untapped potential there. I felt like he was a potential touchdown on every drive. Very scary dude, held back by bad quarterbacking. Yeah, that's always the tough part. Like, when you're dealing with quarterback plays, like trying to judge and grade these wide receivers. I mean, when a lot of people would ask me about Rager when he was coming out of TCU, there's a lot of things I kept saying about Rager is that the dude's athletic is crap, but he had a really, really bad quarterback play. It turned out he just was not a good route runner, period. Easy. So, I mean, I'm not saying Worthy is Rager. I don't think that's fair, but I'm just saying like the mirrored results of like iffy quarterback play and how it can skew your perception of the prospect. No way I'm keeping Brown over Smitty. Sorry, dog. Can't rock with that. I don't think Smitty will get $27 million in my opinion. I think what we did with getting rid of Hassan and going with the young guys was the right move. Think about the Chiefs. They won the Super Bowl relying on young, talented edges, not elite guys. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to catch up real quick. Trade AJ for Micah Parsons, then trade Micah for PS2 in 1987 John Elway. It's a lot of movement, sir. I think Calcaterra could have been a really good receiving tight end. I think. You're projecting Legit to be better than a receiver who's got 3 1K seasons already, and he was drafted by us. Howie don't like letting good players, especially ones he drafted. I don't think that's what they're doing. I think X-Trice, when they're talking about Leggett coming here, they're looking at the AJ Brown role. Who, you know, they're looking at that boundary side physical player, right? They're not looking at someone who's like they're looking at a guy, you know, like AJ is underrated route runner. AJ Brown is, but he's not quite to Devonta's release ability. He's just strong. You're not going to jam AJ off the line. You're going to get beat badly. I think they're looking at more of that role, not necessarily the Devonta Smith role. I don't think that they would necessarily draft Leggett to then get rid of AJ. I think that would be more of the backdoor way of potentially AJ moving on once he gets past this contract. We'll see. I mean, you know, right now it's all hypothetical, right? I mean, the guy's not drafted here as of right now, so we have to see what they do inside the draft. I like the player though. I definitely see some of the parallels to AJ Brown. But, you know, AJ Brown was a second-round pick. He wasn't a shoo-in to be the type of player he became. So that's the problem with, you know, projecting guys. X-Trice. I mean, think about the world we live in. We live in a world where Jalen Reagor was a first-round pick and AJ Brown was a second-round pick. Still got to develop the player. You know what I mean? People were saying BG and Kelsey were a bust too, guys. Let these young boys develop. Yeah, that's what I'm saying too, John. It's too early for that stuff. Yeah, I agree. Age always open, Brown. He's always open, dog. Even in double coverage. Your name says it better than I could, bro. I gotta love people calling players bust after rookie seasons. People are slow. Yeah. I don't agree he's a bust yet. Yeah, I think it's a little early. I said it when they drafted him, guys. I said, I get why they did it. I understand how important the nose is in this system. But I told you guys from the jump, like, a nose tackle in the top 16 of the draft, like, what you're proclaiming is that this guy is going to be a Dexter Lawrence type player down the road. That's what you proclaimed by the position you picked him, right? So that was where I was like, oh, boy, that's going to be tough. But I'm not going to sit here and call the kid a bust. He's a really good run defender. I think his condition in his rookie year, Jordan Davis, was not quite where it needed to be. I thought he was in better shape last year, but it's still not there yet. See year 3. Let's see if that conditioning is there. Fletch is gone now. He's got to play a bigger role. Let's see if they got it right with the Dexter Lawrence thing. Like, he's got to show us more of a pass rush ability. I think he can beat a guy one-on-one, which is pure power. No doubt about it. But is the toolbox there? Things I can't answer, guys. Things not for me to answer. You know what I mean? I hear you, but Smitty is my guy. But I definitely agree we should get Xavier Leggett, dude's a clone of A.J. Brown. Yeah. That was in response to the guy saying Trace. Yeah, I got you, X-Trice. I know exactly what you're talking about. Davis is not a bust, just a disappointment for the 13th. Exactly, easy. Yeah. Next year is a make or break year for him. Can't be just a run stopper. Exactly. If they had drafted him in the back end of the first round, that's a great pick. It's because they drafted him top 16 as a nose tackle. Like, you're basically putting in the company of a guy like Dexter Lawrence. Like, that's a lot to stand up to, man. That's difficult. That's a difficult evaluation. Dank said Davis is a nose tackle. I don't know why some expected him to be Aaron Donald. Exactly. Facts, bro. People don't really understand why we drafted Davis. He's not going to be Aaron Donald. If Davis is only a run stopper, he's got to be Vita Vea level. Although I will say he got double teamed a lot in the run game because our linebackers were so horrible. Mike said, is Terrion Arnold, does he have slot versatility? I've heard some project him there. I don't think he's going to be a slot in the league, but I do think he's got fluid hips. I do think he's one of these guys that could legitimately play all 3 alignments in terms of the corner spot. I think he can play outside as a boundary. I think he can definitely play the field. I don't think he lacks the fluidity in his hips to play the field. And I don't think he lacks the length to play on the boundary. In terms of the nickel, he's done a little bit here and there, but it is a different world on the inside. There's the physical element that we talk about with a guy like Isaiah Rodgers has, right? Darius Slay has that physical element to play in the slot, right? The fluidity and all that stuff. However, being able to work through traffic is a skill set. So we have to see him actually do that. You know what I mean? Like, I can't proclaim him without seeing him do it in the league, because you do have to work through the mess in the inside. Arnold kind of reminds me of Devin Witherspoon from last year. I think T'Vondre Sweat is dropping to the second round because of guys like Davis and Mozzie Smith being disappointing. You still have 2 seasons with Leggett and Smith. If Leggett can't replace Smitty, then he's a great wide receiver 3 and sign Smitty. But I think Smitty benefits a heck of a lot because AJ takes best cornerbacks. Yeah, the DWI doesn't help either. Yeah. I mean, he's a good player. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, that was a bad thing to have happen right when it did for him. His teammate's pretty good too. His teammate's going to be a ball player. Right? He's a guy that sneakily, if the Eagles added him, I'd be like, okay, like, they cook him with a little bit of fire. But they are looking at nose tackles. They still don't seem to be quite settled, Dank, at the nose tackle position behind you. I'm talking about behind Jordan. They brought the kid in. He's a guy's been in the league a couple years. They brought him in. He's a guy that's got some nose. Obviously they have Marlon Tuipulotu, who's got some experience with nose, but I think he's a little undersized, to be quite honest. It'd be interesting to see what they do. Do they want a true natural nose? Obviously, they still have Noah Ellis here that they're trying to develop, but we'll see. I don't want to say Noah's not going to translate. I mean, you got to give the guy time, but he's been here a couple of years now. They still seem a little unsettled. You remember last year they looked at that Broderick, whatever his name was, the big dude. He was like 6'6", 6'7", 350. He was a monster. They looked at him too before they ended up, taking my guy Moro Ojama, who I thought that was one of the best picks they had, man. I thought that was in terms of the value, guys, not in terms of the player, but I thought that was one heck of a value pick there. I think they got to figure out what they want to do. They have a lot of 3s that can play as 5s. So, obviously Jalen Carter can play some nose tackle if you need him to in a pinch, kind of like Fletch used to play nose for a handful of snaps here and there. He can do that. It's not his natural alignment, though. I think he's going to be more of a 3-tech and a 5-tech, depending on the front that, Fangio wants to run. I think you got the same exact thing when you look at a guy like Moro Jamo and Milton Williams. They're 3 and 5 techs in this front. I don't know that Moro Jamo has the ability to play as a nose. I don't see that from him. Milton. I mean, if you tilted him, if you played him as a tilted zero shade at tilt, maybe. Maybe if you're just trying to beat the ball, you're trying to use that speed, but you don't want them doubling to Milton. That's not his game. Um, yeah, I think they're a little unsettled there, guys. I definitely think they're a little unsettled behind Jordan Davis at nose tackle. I think they're throwing some darts at the board trying to find a guy. I wouldn't be shocked if a day 3 pick doesn't roll in at that nose tackle spot, to be quite honest. I can't remember what's that guy's name, guys. They did bring a dude in here who's got some experience playing nose. Let me look it up real quick, man. It's bothering me. I don't know. I blame it on the child. I haven't had a lot of sleep, guys. Let me see. What was the dude's name? No, it's not Thomas Booker. Sorry, guys. Give me 1 minute. I'm just looking through these names here. We talked about Noah Ellis. Teron Jackson. What is this dude's name? It's bothering me. How do I forget dude's name? PJ Mustipher. PJ Mustipher, the young man out of Penn State. PJ Mustipher, and then you got, Noah Ellis. They got Marlon Tuipulotu behind them. I mean, I still think they're throwing some darts at the board. I think they know that Tuipulotu might be kind of on his last year because he's on the last year of his rookie deal. So I think they're trying to figure some stuff out behind Jordan Davis. I wouldn't be shocked for a day 3 pick to roll in for like a guy that's got some nose tackle ability. Eden was Mustipher. Eden. It's like PJ Mustipher. If you had to say right now who will be our nickel corner game 1, ooh, Mike. Whew. It's a tough one, man. I think Avante has a leg up if he's healthy. I got to tell you, a guy that's not being talked about, Mike, and I don't know where he's going to be. The injury occurred really early on. It was in preseason. I thought this dude was always a nickel corner that they kept trying to play outside. He's a better athlete than the 40 time tells you. You got to look at all the underlying. Look at his lateral movement ability, right? Look at the way his broad jumps. Look at the explosion in this guy, which was Zach McPherson. I'm disappointed he blew his ACL out in preseason because with Avonte Maddox going down in season, it would have been really interesting to see how Zach McPherson responded to that. Because I think he's a natural slot guy that they were trying. He wanted. It wasn't the Eagles. I think the Eagles always kind of knew he was more of a slot. I think they were trying to give him the opportunity to play outside because that's where he wanted to play. He just didn't. That wasn't his spot. He's a guy that's interesting, right? Isaiah Rodgers. I'm curious if they're going to play him inside or outside. He doesn't have a lot of experience playing inside, but he has all the underlying attributes of a nickel. Just doesn't have the experience playing there. He's an interesting guy. They threw a lot of darts there. They brought the young man in from the Raiders, Tyler. Looks like he's a guy that could definitely come in and give you some meaningful snaps. I'll say that competition, Mike, I'll give the leg up to what I know, which is Avonte Maddox, when healthy, is one of the better dudes doing it in the league. They're not playing around this year about that one, though, Mike. I think your reading is pretty accurate, which is they're not joking about that nickel spot. They're not going to be caught like they were caught last year there. So, yeah, it's going to get interesting there. I respect what you're saying, bro, but in today's game, I think you need 2 legit receivers at this point. May as well say 3. Yeah, Zach McPherson. Yeah, Dank. Yeah. I had high hopes for him. I did too, man. I hated that he went down because I thought he was going to really I thought the light was going to go on as a nickel corner for him, Dank. We got to see where he is with the ACL. It happened early. So there's a shot that he's going to be further along than some of the other guys. So, I mean, he's going to be an interesting one for me. I want to see what he does when they get him on the field. They can wait and sign him midseason. Chen said, I forgot about Zach. Yeah, he's kind of been the quiet guy in this whole conversation, right? Yeah. I think I hate he missed the opportunity last year. I hate he missed the opportunity. He would have definitely had an opportunity to prove himself, but I wouldn't I'm not gonna overlook the Tyler kid, Tyler Hall, I believe is his name, the young man from I think he's coming over from the Raiders, Vegas. I think I called him Oakland earlier, the Vegas Raiders. Chen said, the more I think about all these cornerbacks they have on this roster, they may not take one until day 3. They also might. It's possible that they're looking to move James Bradbury, but they're not going to do that unless they get their guy in the first or second round. It's going to be an interesting one, Chin. I could see both perspectives there, right? Michael says Zach is definitely a slot starter over most our guys. Kid can play. Yeah, he was also a really good special teams player. Kevon Wallace, same thing. When we lost Kevon Wallace, a lot of people, he'd have been a great fourth safety. Dang good special teams player. He was the PP, the personal protector for the punt team. Reed did a pretty good job. I thought Reed locked it down last year as a personal protector. He did his thing. But, with Reed being a starter, I'd like to see another guy tasked with that. I'll say in the preseason, they were using the kid I was really high on. The big dude. What's his name? Oh, gosh. What is his name? The big kid. He's a corner. Not Zach. What's his name? Give me 1 second, guys. I promise you, it's the lack of sleep. Normally, I can remember everybody's names. Right now, I'm hurting. Let's see. Mekhi Garner. Mekhi Garner was a personal protector during the preseason on the punt team, and he was pretty dang good. Mekhi Garner is a guy that, he's got to sneak on the back end of the roster. And I think it's going to be pretty hard for him to do that. Practice squad eligibility guy, though, that you could potentially bring up and do some things from a special teams perspective. The other guy, they signed another. There's a sneaky dude, Tywan Mullen, who's a slot corner. I don't know if this dude can play. He's got to show us that he can even play in the NFL. But you talk about an athlete. That young man's an athlete. Yeah. Yeah, he's another guy I would watch out for. Tywan Mullen, crazy good athlete, slot guy. Don't know if he can play yet, though. You got to see that. Oakland down bad. All their teams moving to Vegas.
1 or 2 bottles of formula.
Rickson Job or Job yet? No, I was thinking of the other guy. What's up?
1 or 2 bottles of formula.
Pull 2 out, but just take 1 back. Sorry, guys. It's almost time to feed the baby again. Dank. They have more corners than a bookstore. Yeah, it's kind of hard to remember every single player. Yeah. Yeah, Mekhi Garner can play too. I feel like Howie and Nick play favorites, so a lot of other players never get a shot. Yeah, I think some of that has to do with the coaching staff they had too. It looks like Vic's going to be a little bit more willing to play these young guys. And it's something it'd be pretty cool to see. I felt like there's been opportunities to get other guys on the field at times, and we didn't do a great job developing them because we never got them on the field. I think that's a problem, man. How much would Justin Simmons upgrade our secondary? Pretty significantly. He's not a long-term solution, Mike, but even if he's only like 85% of what he was in his prime, yeah, he's pretty good. I hope so. Brandon Smithgate working his way into the rotation as a kind of that on-ball Sam kind of role. Yeah, they got a lot of interesting prospects on the back end of the roster. It'll be interesting to see how they shape this thing. All right, guys, I appreciate y'all so much. I'm about to log off here because I got to help get the baby fed. So, yeah, heard Simmons is going to the Steelers. It's a good fit for him, to be honest. I appreciate y'all. We're going to try to keep doing this, guys. I'll try to come on for like at least an hour a day. So that way we got a little bit of time where we can kind of talk some ball. But, yeah. All right, guys, I appreciate y'all so much, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.